So the limiting belief that we found is that we really have to have everything figured out before we can really, put a stake in the ground and even start the planning. That's a common thing that we hear. It's like, well, I'm not ready because I don't have it all figured out. And the truth is that we transition, if you think of it the way that we do, it's a journey and it's not a single event. And so if you think of it as a journey, just like a road trip, you're seeing things along the way, you're learning along the way. You might take a different turn in the road and go a different direction when you get farther down the road, but at least you're driving, at least you're doing something, and at least you have people invited to come with you. And hopefully you're having fun, right? So we like it to be a journey, and we found it to be very advantageous to do that. So in order to make it a journey, you really have to make it a timeline. And so we like the timeline perspective because it puts time into the equation of transition, because a lot of people don't do that. It's like, well, I'm either going to sell it or I'm going to, transition it to the kids. And it's sort of like a stake in the ground is sitting there, but it sits there forever. It doesn't have any deadline on it. So having that is really very helpful. So it puts time into the equation. It lowers anxiety because you're not sitting there spinning. You've got something coming, and it lowers your anxiety. It creates a space for learning and shifts because you can invite people in. It's not a demand, but you can invite them in. They know what's going to happen. And many times, at least in our work, they've had input into what has happened. If you include them as owner founder, really the work that you are doing, that we do and help people with, we are helping you to design this for your next generation. If your kids decide to do this, you want them to be like, yes, I want it, right? But then on the flip of it, you don't want too much of it, because too much of it is pushy. So yeah, I'm waiting. What's my role? How do I not step on people's toes? Because we're a family. We want to be together and have fun. So drafting your timeline, you want to identify key milestones for you, for the business, for others. And sometimes, again, if it's a family, you want to identify key things for the family as well. Define the roles, and how do the roles shift, right? They shift over time. So how do those shift through? It's you passing along, right? Learning and shifts and helping them while you're available. You're helping them design what it looks like for them to be running it in the future, whether they want it and whether they want to work together like that or not. And maybe one does and one doesn't, but that's all discovered. What I've seen is if people wait, and especially if the relationship and if things are awkward, the waiting is like a little time bomb where something happens. And I said this yesterday, repairing relationships is so much more difficult than just, jumping in and being brave. And it's hard to jump in and be brave, but repairing, I just did that with a family. It's a father son. They were doing fine. Things were a little bit stressed, big blow up. Took a year and a half to get them back to where they're working together again. One conversation and one thing that basically set the trust and the inability to communicate, right? Because when you are not communicating with somebody or there's stress in a relationship, what you do is, instead of being brave and talking about it and just diving in and finding a way to do that and finding some help for that, because that's important, the outside perspective, what happens is you start avoiding each other. And as you avoid each other, the gap gets bigger and the communication gets less, which is the opposite of what needs to happen. You need to have more communication. So my thought for you is jump in, don't let it go very long, and be brave. In order to make it a journey, you really have to. When people ask me that question, I actually go somewhat, you can think about it. So that was one example of one item.